The warning. The crystalline spires of New Singapore pierced the dawn sky, their surfaces reflecting the first rays of sunlight in a dazzling display of amber and gold. Inside the Global Defense Council's headquarters, Admiral Sarah Chen stood motionless before the holographic projection that dominated the center of the war room. The message playing before her had arrived just hours ago, transmitted simultaneously to every major population center on Earth. The alien figure in the projection towered over the assembled military leaders, its ethereal form composed of swirling patterns of light. When it spoke, its voice resonated with the weight of countless civilizations. To the species known as humanity, the being announced, its tone carrying neither malice nor warmth. I speak as the voice of the collective, the unified alliance of the galaxy's enlightened species. Your rapid expansion and technological development have become a matter of grave concern. You have ignored our previous attempts at guidance. Your warfare capabilities grow unchecked. Your colonies spread without regard for established territorial boundaries. This cannot continue. Sarah's fingers tightened around the edge of the tactical display, her knuckles white with tension. Earth had known about the collective for decades. Mysterious signals, occasional glimpses of their ships at the edges of human space. But this was different. This was direct contact. The voice continued. You have 2 standard rotations of your planet to submit to collective oversight. Your military will be disbanded. Your expansion will cease. Your technology will be regulated. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. The projection flickered and vanished, leaving the room in heavy silence. General Marcus Rivera was the first to speak, his weathered face tight with controlled anger. They're asking us to surrender everything we've built, everything we are. No, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. They're asking us to stop being human. She turned to face the assembled leaders, her dark eyes reflecting the determination that had carried her through countless battles. And that's exactly why they've already lost. In the days that followed, humanity showed why it had survived every catastrophe in its history. Instead of panic, there was purpose. Instead of submission, there was preparation. The Global Defense Council activated contingency plans that had been decades in the making, projects and technologies kept hidden not just from the public, but from any potential watching eyes among the stars. Deep beneath the Martian surface, in facilities carved into the red planet's core, the first ships of humanity's true fleet were already waiting. Not the conventional vessels that patrolled Earth's colonies, but something entirely different. Project Phoenix, they called it, warships built with technology that violated every assumption the collective had about human capabilities. Sarah stood in the observation deck of the underground facility, watching as workers swarmed over the hull of the DSV Prometheus, the flagship of what would soon be called the Phoenix Fleet. The ship's surface seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, incorporating nanoscale adaptations that would allow it to evolve during combat. The collective thinks they're dealing with a primitive species that needs to be contained, she said to Rivera, who had joined her at the window. They see our conflicts, our divisions, our apparent technological limitations, and they think they understand us. Rivera nodded, a grim smile crossing his face. They don't realize those limitations were a choice, a mask. Exactly, Sarah replied. For every public advancement we made, we kept 3 hidden. For every visible military exercise, we conducted dozens in secret. We knew this day might come, and we made sure we'd be ready. The Prometheus's engines began to pulse with a deep blue light as the final systems came online. Similar scenes were playing out in hidden facilities across the solar system. Earth had prepared for this moment ever since the first hints of the collective's existence had been detected. In her private quarters later that night, Sarah reviewed the final preparation reports. The Phoenix Fleet wasn't just powerful, it was innovative in ways the collective couldn't predict. Human ships incorporated technologies that mimicked biological adaptation, learning and evolving during combat. Their weapons were designed to exploit the fundamental laws of physics in ways that the collective's ancient but rigid scientific understanding had never considered. But their greatest advantage wasn't technological. It was psychological. The collective, for all its power, was bound by millennia of tradition and established protocols. They expected compliance because they had never truly faced resistance. They had forgotten, if they had ever known, what it meant to fight for survival. Humanity had never forgotten. Every crisis in their history, every near-extinction event, every war and disaster and triumph had taught them one crucial lesson. Adaptation wasn't just a survival strategy. It was the essence of what made them human. As the deadline approached, Sarah transmitted her own message to every ship in the Phoenix Fleet. It was short, but it carried the weight of humanity's response to the collective's ultimatum. They expect us to submit. Instead, we will show them why humanity has survived everything the universe has thrown at us. We don't just adapt, we evolve. We don't just survive, we thrive. And when they come to enforce their decree, they'll learn what every force that tried to contain humanity has learned. We are at our most dangerous when someone tells us what we cannot do. The countdown to the deadline continued, but Earth wasn't preparing for surrender. They were preparing to show the galaxy why humanity had become a force to be reckoned with. The collective had made a fundamental error in their calculations. They had assumed that humanity's visible technology and behavior represented the full extent of their capabilities. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Operation Silent Storm. The last hours of the collective's deadline ticked away in perfect silence. Their massive ships hung in high orbit, a show of force meant to intimidate Earth into submission. Their sensors swept the planet repeatedly, detecting nothing but routine civilian activities and the primitive military vessels they'd already documented. Those same sensors failed to notice the quantum distortions building in the shadow of Mars. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the DSV Prometheus, watching the tactical display as the final preparations for Operation Silent Storm reached completion. The Phoenix Fleet's ships had been equipped with quantum mimicry systems, technology that allowed them to match their quantum signatures to the background noise of space itself, rendering them effectively invisible to conventional detection methods. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Captain Maya Rodriguez announced from her station. The young officer's voice carried the tension of someone about to make history, though her hands remained steady on the controls. Sarah nodded, her expression carved from stone. "Send the signal to all ships. Operation Silent Storm begins in 3 minutes." The plan was audacious, even by human standards. While the collective's attention was focused on Earth, the Phoenix Fleet would execute a series of synchronized quantum jumps, not just faster than light travel, but controlled tiers in the fabric of spacetime itself. Each ship would emerge at precisely calculated points around the collective's fleet, creating a three-dimensional web of firepower before the enemy could react. "Quantum drives spooling up," Maya reported, her eyes fixed on the readouts. 90 seconds to jump." Sarah touched the communication panel on her command chair. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. In moments, we're about to show the collective why humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to surpass everyone's expectations, including our own. Execute your jumps exactly as planned. Show them no mercy, but remember, we're not fighting for revenge. We're fighting for our right to determine our own destiny." The bridge fell silent as the final seconds counted down. Sarah felt the subtle vibration through the deck plates as the quantum drive reached its peak. The Prometheus, like all ships in the Phoenix Fleet, incorporated bioneural interfaces that allowed it to adapt and react with near-organic speed. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was almost alive, learning and evolving with each moment of combat. Jump in 3, 2, 1. Reality twisted. The quantum drive tore open precisely calculated holes in spacetime, and the Phoenix Fleet vanished from the shadow of Mars. For a fraction of a second, they existed everywhere and nowhere, their consciousness stretched across multiple dimensions. They emerged in perfect formation around the collective fleet. "Fire," Sarah commanded, her voice cold and clear. The Phoenix Fleet unleashed weapons that defied the collective's understanding of physics. Quantum-entangled missiles that existed in multiple states simultaneously, making them impossible to intercept. Graviton beams that didn't just damage enemy ships, they temporarily rewrote the laws of gravity around their targets, causing them to tear themselves apart. The collective's response was delayed by precious seconds of confusion. Their sensors, calibrated to detect known forms of technology, struggled to process what they were seeing. By the time they began to return fire, 3 of their largest vessels had already been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Multiple enemy ships attempting to engage FTL drives. Maya reported, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. Quantum inhibitors holding steady. That was another surprise they'd prepared. Technology that created localized disruptions in spacetime, preventing conventional faster-than-light travel. The collected ships were trapped, forced to fight on humanity's terms. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The collected ships were powerful, their technology refined over millennia, but they fought according to established protocols and strategies. The Phoenix Fleet, by contrast, adapted with every exchange of fire. Bioneural networks analyzed enemy patterns in real time, predicting responses and adjusting tactics faster than organic minds could react. 2 enemy dreadnoughts approaching on Vector 317, Maya called out. They're attempting to concentrate their fire on the Prometheus. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Exactly as expected. Signal the Hyperion and the Orion. Execute Maneuver Theta. 3 Phoenix Fleet vessels moved in perfect synchronization, their quantum signatures merging and separating in a dance that confused enemy targeting systems. The collective's dreadnoughts fired massive energy weapons, but their beams passed through phantom images, while real ships struck from unexpected angles. Enemy fleet is in disarray, Maya reported, unable to keep a note of triumph from her voice. They're breaking formation, attempting to regroup. Don't let them, Sarah ordered. All ships implement attack pattern Delta. Push the advantage. The Phoenix Fleet pressed forward, their adaptive technology learning and improving with each passing moment. Ships that took damage repaired themselves using nanoscale fabricators, their hulls flowing like liquid metal to seal breaches and optimize structural integrity. As the battle reached its crescendo, Sarah received a priority communication from Earth. General Rivera's holographic image appeared beside her command chair, his expression a mixture of satisfaction and concern. The collective's ambassador is demanding to know what's happening, he reported. They're claiming we violated their ultimatum. Send them my response, Sarah replied, her eyes fixed on the tactical display as another enemy vessel succumbed to the Phoenix Fleet's assault. Tell them this is humanity's counteroffer. We will not be contained. We will not be controlled. And we're just getting started. The battle for Earth's independence had begun, and humanity had struck the first blow. But Sarah knew this was only the beginning. The collective would respond with everything they had, and humanity would need every ounce of their ingenuity and determination to survive what was coming. The tide turns. 3 months into the war, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the war room beneath New Singapore, studying the galactic map with intense focus. Hundreds of battles had been fought across dozens of star systems, and a pattern was emerging. One that confirmed humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their hidden technology, but their ability to think differently. Show me the Arcturus engagement, she commanded, and a holographic display shifted to highlight a recent battle. The simulation played out, showing how a small group of Phoenix Fleet ships had outmaneuvered a collective battle group 3 times their size. They're still fighting according to doctrines established thousands of years ago, Sarah observed, addressing the assembled command staff. Every response, every formation, every tactic follows patterns they've used for millennia. They haven't had to innovate, until now. General Rivera nodded, his expression thoughtful. And that's why they're losing more ships than we are, despite their superior numbers. They can't adapt fast enough to our changing strategies. The Phoenix Fleet had evolved far beyond its original specifications. The bioneural networks that allowed ships to learn and adapt had created entirely new combat techniques, some so complex that even their human crews didn't fully understand them until after the fact. Every engagement taught them something new, while the collective remained bound by tradition and protocol. A priority alert flashed across the tactical display, drawing everyone's attention. Collective forces are massing in the Proxima Centauri system. Captain Rodriguez reported from her station. Largest concentration we've seen yet. They're bringing in ships from across their territory. Sarah studied the incoming data with narrowed eyes. The collective was gathering an armada, clearly preparing for a decisive strike. But something about their deployment pattern seemed off. Too rigid, too predictable. They're trying to overwhelm us with sheer numbers, she said slowly, her mind racing ahead to possibilities. But look at their formation. They're still adhering to their traditional battle doctrine, just on a larger scale. Can we counter that many ships? Rivera asked, voicing the concern everyone felt. The collective's gathered forces outnumbered the entire Phoenix Fleet by at least 5-1. Sarah's response was interrupted by an urgent communication from the DSV Hyperion, one of their most advanced research vessels. Dr. Elena Santos, the ship's lead scientist, appeared in a hologram above the tactical table. "Admiral, we've made a breakthrough," she announced, her eyes bright with excitement. "Remember how our quantum mimicry systems allow us to match background space-time signatures? We've found a way to take it further. We can actually manipulate those signatures on a massive scale." Sarah leaned forward, instantly grasping the implications. "You're saying we can change the fundamental properties of space itself in a battle zone?" "Exactly," Elena confirmed. "We can create localized areas where their traditional physics-based weapons become unpredictable, even dangerous to their own ships. Their entire combat doctrine is based on predictable physical constants we can now selectively alter." The war room erupted in excited discussion, but Sarah raised a hand for silence. Her mind was already formulating a plan that would turn the collective's greatest strength, their rigid adherence to established protocols, into a fatal weakness. "How quickly can you deploy this technology across the fleet?" she asked. "We've already transmitted the specifications to all ships with bioneural networks," Elena replied. "The ships are adapting the technology as we speak. They're actually improving on our original design." Sarah turned to the assembled command staff, her expression determined. "The collective thinks they can crush us with superior numbers, using the same tactics they've relied on for thousands of years. Instead, they're about to fight in an environment where everything they know about warfare becomes a liability." Over the next few days, the Phoenix Fleet prepared for what would become known as the Battle of Proxima Centauri. Every ship was equipped with the new space-time manipulation technology, and combat simulations ran constantly as they refined their approach. When the collective's armada finally launched its assault, they encountered something unprecedented. The Phoenix Fleet didn't just fight. They rewrote the rules of combat itself. Ships created bubbles of altered space-time, where energy weapons diffracted unpredictably and conventional engines struggled to function. The collective's mighty armada found itself divided into isolated pockets, their carefully planned formations shattered by zones where the very laws of physics seemed to rebel against them. Their attempts to regroup were thwarted by Phoenix Fleet vessels that seemed to ignore the normal constraints of space and time. "Enemy fleet is showing signs of systemic failure," Maya reported from the Prometheus's bridge. "Their command and control structure is breaking down. Individual ships are starting to act independently." Sarah watched as the massive collective formation began to disintegrate. Their rigid hierarchy, which had served them for millennia, was becoming their undoing. When ships lost contact with their command structure, they defaulted to pre-programmed responses that made them even more predictable. "This is the turning point," she realized aloud. "They can't adapt fast enough to overcome both our technology and our tactics. Their own protocols are trapping them." The Battle of Proxima Centauri marked a fundamental shift in the war. The collective's aura of invincibility was shattered, not just by defeat, but by the revelation that their entire approach to warfare was fundamentally flawed in the face of an enemy that refused to play by their rules. As the surviving collective ships retreated in disarray, Sarah received reports of similar breakdowns in enemy operations across multiple sectors. The Phoenix Fleet's victory had done more than win a battle. It had exposed the fatal flaw in the collective's entire civilization, their inability to adapt to fundamental change. But even as she accepted the congratulations of her command staff, Sarah felt a nagging concern. The collective's next response would be crucial. Would they finally learn to adapt, or would they double down on the protocols that had failed them? Either way, humanity had to be ready for what came next. Breaking point. The message that arrived at Earth's defense headquarters came not from the voice of the collective, but from an individual member species. The Araxians, ancient beings of pure energy who had helped found the collective millennia ago, were requesting a private audience with human leadership. Admiral Chen sat in the secure communication chamber, General Rivera at her side, as the holographic form of the Araxian emissary materialized before them. Unlike the intimidating presence of the collective's voice, this being appeared as a gentle swirl of golden light. "We have watched your species with great interest," the Araxian began, its thoughts translating directly into words. "Your victory at Proxima Centauri has caused unprecedented discord within the collective. Many now question the wisdom of attempting to contain humanity." Sarah leaned forward, carefully maintaining a neutral expression. "Are you suggesting the collective might be willing to negotiate?" "The collective as a whole remains committed to your subjugation," the Araxian replied. "But several member species, including our own, have begun to see the fundamental flaw in this approach. Your species has demonstrated something we had forgotten was possible: the ability to evolve and adapt rapidly without losing cohesion. While you fight as individuals, thinking and adapting independently," the being continued, "you maintain a unity of purpose that we find fascinating. The collective achieves unity through rigid protocols and hierarchies. You achieve it while embracing chaos and change." Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared through the facility. Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the command channel. "Multiple collective fleets detected entering the solar system. They're using the new form of FTL travel. Our early warning systems barely caught them." The Araxian's form flickered. "The hardliners have discovered our communication. They mean to end this war decisively, before more species can question the collective's path. But in their desperation, they make their greatest mistake. They're adapting," Sarah realized aloud. "But they're doing it wrong, trying to match our technological innovations without understanding the philosophy behind them." "Precisely," the Araxian agreed. "They copy your methods without comprehending your strength. We cannot officially aid you, but know that you are not alone in seeing the necessity of change." As the Araxian's form faded, Sarah and Rivera rushed to the war room. The tactical display showed the largest collective force yet assembled, but something was different about these ships. They moved erratically, their formations loose and unpredictable. "They're trying to fight like us," Rivera observed, watching the enemy's approach. "But look, their ships aren't coordinating effectively. They're just being unpredictable for unpredictability's sake." Sarah studied the display intently. The collective ships showed signs of hasty modification, attempts to incorporate human-inspired technology without fully understanding its principles. Their usually perfect formations were scattered, each ship trying to act independently, but lacking the training and intuition that made human tactics effective. "Send word to all Phoenix Fleet vessels," she commanded. "The enemy is desperate and dangerous, but they're also vulnerable. They're caught between their old doctrine and their attempt to copy ours. That makes them predictable in a whole new way." The battle that followed demonstrated the difference between true adaptation and mere imitation. The collective ships, despite their new capabilities, couldn't match the natural fluidity of the Phoenix Fleet. Their attempts at unconventional tactics felt forced, mechanical, while human ships flowed through space with organic grace, their bio-neural networks allowing for instant, intuitive responses. Their command structure is breaking down completely, Maya reported from the Prometheus. Different ships are trying different tactics, but there's no coordination, no underlying strategy. Sarah watched as the massive collective fleet began to fracture. Some ships clung to traditional formations while others attempted to copy human attack patterns, creating chaos in their own ranks. The Phoenix fleet took advantage of every mistake, every moment of confusion. But the true turning point came when a group of collective ships suddenly broke away from the main force, their engines dark. At first, Sarah thought they were retreating, but then she recognized the energy signatures. They were ships belonging to the Araxians and their allies. They're not just withdrawing from the battle, she realized. They're withdrawing from the collective itself. The implications rippled through both fleets. The collective's remaining ships fought with increasing desperation, but their attacks grew wilder, less coordinated. They were witnessing the unthinkable, the dissolution of an alliance that had stood for thousands of years. As the battle reached its climax, Sarah received another transmission, this time from multiple species within the collective. They too were standing down, recognizing that the old order was crumbling. The rigid protocols that had once been the collective's strength had become chains that bound them to obsolete ways of thinking. The human victory that day wasn't just military, it was philosophical. They had proven that true strength came not from unchanging protocols, but from the ability to adapt while maintaining unity. The collective's attempts to copy human tactics without understanding human nature had only highlighted the fundamental difference between their civilizations. "Send word to Earth," Sarah ordered as the remaining enemy ships retreated in disarray. "Tell them we've won more than a battle today. We've shown the galaxy a new way forward." But even as the celebrations began, Sarah knew that the most dangerous moment was still to come. The collective's leadership, faced with the collapse of their authority, would have one final choice to make, and their decision would determine the fate of the galaxy. A new dawn. The core leadership of the collective. Being so ancient they remembered the first interstellar civilizations, gathered in their hidden sanctuary deep within the galactic core. Their physical forms had long since evolved beyond ordinary matter, existing as patterns of pure energy, sustained by technology so advanced it bordered on magical. But for the first time in eons, they felt fear. Admiral Sarah Chen knew none of this directly, but she could see its effects. The quantum sensors of the Phoenix fleet detected massive energy disturbances throughout the galaxy as the collective's remaining loyal forces gathered for what could only be their final stand. They're consolidating everything they have left, she explained to the assembled human leadership and their new allies. The Araxians and other former collective species had joined them in the war room beneath New Singapore, their varied forms creating an unprecedented gathering of galactic civilizations. The holographic display showed the movement of thousands of ships, all converging on a single point. But something was different about them now. The energy readings were off the scale, suggesting modifications that went far beyond anything seen before. They're not just gathering their forces, the Araxian representative observed, its golden form pulsing with concern. They're merging them. The collective's leaders are implementing protocols that haven't been used since the birth of our civilization. The ability to combine multiple ships and crews into single entities. Sarah studied the readings with growing concern. The collective's desperation had driven them to reveal capabilities they had kept hidden for millennia. Their ships were fusing together, creating massive structures that defied conventional physics. They're not trying to win anymore, she realized aloud. They're trying to force the galaxy back to their version of order, no matter the cost. The threat was clear. The collective's leaders would rather risk destroying the fabric of space-time itself than accept a future they couldn't control. Their combined fleet was becoming something unprecedented, a single vast entity that could reshape reality at will. But as Sarah watched the tactical display, she saw something else. The Collective's desperate gambit had revealed not just their hidden power, but also their fundamental weakness. They were still thinking in terms of raw force, of imposing their will through sheer might. "They've shown us their true nature," she said, turning to address the assembled allies. "They believe that power comes from control, from forcing the universe to conform to their vision. But we've proven something different, that true strength comes from adaptation, from working with the chaos of existence rather than trying to suppress it." She moved to the central console, her fingers dancing across the controls as she pulled up the specifications for the Phoenix Fleet's quantum manipulation technology. "We've been using this to change local space-time properties, but what if we could do more? What if we could use it to show them a different way?" The next hours were a blur of activity as human scientists worked alongside their alien allies, combining technologies and insights from a dozen civilizations. The Phoenix Fleet's biomural networks were modified to operate on a quantum level, creating a system that could do more than just fight. It could communicate in the fundamental language of reality itself. When the Collective's combined fleet finally approached Earth, they found not an enemy force waiting to oppose them, but something entirely different. The Phoenix Fleet had arranged itself in a pattern that mirrored the quantum structure of space-time itself, each ship connected to the others in a web of conscious energy. "Send the message," Sarah commanded from the bridge of the Prometheus, which had been modified to serve as the focal point of their formation. The Phoenix Fleet activated its enhanced systems, and for a moment, the fabric of reality itself seemed to sing. They weren't attacking the Collective. They were showing them another path, demonstrating how consciousness could work with the universe rather than trying to dominate it. The effect was immediate and profound. The Collective's massive combined fleet froze in space as their leaders, for the first time in their ancient existence, encountered a genuinely new way of thinking. They had spent millennia trying to impose order on chaos, never realizing that true harmony came from embracing complexity rather than suppressing it. The battle that everyone had expected never happened. Instead, something unprecedented occurred: genuine communication. The quantum-level dialogue between the fleets became a conversation about the nature of existence itself, about different ways of understanding the universe and humanity's place in it. Hours passed as the exchange continued, and when it finally ended, the galaxy had changed forever. The Collective's leaders emerged from their communion with a profound realization. Their ancient mission to maintain order had become a prison, not just for others but for themselves. "We have existed for so long that we forgot what it meant to grow," the voice of the Collective announced to all assembled ships. "Humanity, in their defiance of our authority, has given us something we didn't know we needed: the chance to evolve again." The aftermath of that day would reshape galactic civilization. The Collective didn't dissolve entirely, but it transformed into something new: a forum for cooperation and exchange rather than an instrument of control. Humanity's achievement wasn't just surviving or winning. It was showing an ancient civilization a new way forward. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of the New Singapore headquarters months later, watching ships from dozens of species move through the solar system in peaceful cooperation. The Phoenix Fleet remained vigilant, but its role had changed. It now served as a symbol of innovation and adaptation rather than just a military force. "We never wanted to rule the galaxy," she reflected to General Rivera, who had joined her at the window. "We just wanted the freedom to find our own path." In the end, that turned out to be exactly what the galaxy needed. Rivera nodded, watching as a group of former Collective ships demonstrated their newly developed ability to adapt and evolve. "They're learning from us, just as we're learning from them. Maybe that's the real victory. Not defeating an enemy, but helping them become something better." Sarah smiled as she saw a Phoenix Fleet vessel executing a complex maneuver alongside its former adversaries, sharing the lessons of human ingenuity with the galaxy. The war was over, but humanity's greatest contribution was just beginning, teaching the stars themselves how to dance to a new rhythm, one that celebrated change rather than fearing it. The universe, they had discovered, was vast enough for many kinds of order, many forms of harmony. And in that diversity lay the seeds of a future greater than any single species could have imagined alone.